I think that the survival of Israel is almost unimaginable without the alliance with the United States. I think that the alliance remains based upon shared values. I think the moral foundation of it is finally the strongest. I think I would complicate Michael's remarks only in this way. I think it's important for people here to understand the full complexity of America's strategic needs in the region, especially since the Iraq War. There is nothing that would please the United States more and serve American and Israeli interests more than the establishment of what certain experts like to call a Pax Americana. There are many things standing in the way of this regional arrangement. One of them is the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The United States has always and always will find itself thwarted in its strategic ambitions for the region by this conflict between what it would like to regard as an internecine conflict within the American orbit, within the American sphere of influence. And I think that it's important to recognize for that reason that whatever any Democrat or Republican candidate or president says, there will be a peace process. It will not be a peace process that will please all of Israel's supporters. The United States has very strong strategic reasons for needing such a peace process, and the unpleasantness is that there may be pleasantness as well, though it's more likely that we'll see unpleasantnesses first, has to be understood as part of the larger strategic picture.
I'm going to give you an impossible final question each, which is to flash forward 60 years and answer the questions that you should never answer, and give us a sense of how you think Israel will be 60 years from now, in about 30 seconds each, okay? So now that I've given you 10 seconds to absorb the impact of that impossible question, Michael, let's start with you. Israel, 60 years from today, we should all live so long.
One of the great things about being an historian, David, is you only have to predict the past. First of all, we'll all be driving electric cars. Israel will, I agree thoroughly with Natan that Israel will have an even stronger relationship with the United States, and that Israel will continue to develop its society, that Israel will continue to preserve its relationship with diaspora Jewry, and Israel will embark on a great process of introspection, which we haven't really talked sufficiently about this evening, but the great challenge of Israel in the next 60 years, after we have built the state institutions, after we've built our armies, after we've established our diplomacy, is figuring out who we are as a nation, our relationship to Judaism, whether we're just a state of Jews or is there something inherently Jewish about this state, our relationship with our minority communities, which is exceedingly important. We are going to embark on this great venture of self-discovery, and at the end of 60 years, I think we'll have a good sense of what Israel is and is about.
Ruth, Israel 60 years from now.
Well, I want to sound an unpleasant note. I hope that Israel will be independent and Jewish and liberal 60 years from now. I don't take this for granted, and I'm going to try and work as hard as I can and make anyone else who is concerned about this fact work as hard as they can so that Israel in 60 years will be, and we will be here sitting and talking about Israel and its prospects for the next 60, 100 years. And I would like you all to go with this feeling that there is nothing more dangerous to a project like Israel from taking it for granted. I think this is part of the reason that some of the strength that Israel had that enabled it to overcome much greater difficulties than that it faced 60 and 70 and 80 years ago, and it did it admirably. Some of these features are not as strong today as they were, and this is something that is troubling. Some of the concern of the Jewish people with Israel and with the continuation of the Jewish people is not as strong today as it was 60 years ago. And these are things that each one of us who is interested in the survival and flourishing of the Jewish people and of the State of Israel as the independent home of part of the Jewish people and in the relationships between Israel and America should work very hard to maintain and promote this relationship.
Leon.
Well, the immediate funny answer would be that 60 years from now, Shimon Peres will still be seeking high office. But more substantively, I have to say that whereas I have an almost mystical faith in the survival of Israel, I do find myself deeply anxious about the future, somewhat along the lines that Ruth has mentioned. For the first time ever really in my adult life, I sometimes think that there will not be peace in my lifetime. On the other hand, if one looks at what the demographers say about population growth between the river and the sea, if one looks at various other things that we've talked about, the arrival of peace seems to me to be more urgent than ever before. I worry more when it comes to the larger Jewish questions, even though, of course, the hostility between the secular and the religious is quite sickening. I actually worry much more about the American Jewish community than I do about Israel, about which I have grave doubts. But I will say that I do think Ruth is right. One cannot take it for granted. Peace has never been more necessary. And for the reasons we've all said, peace has also never seemed more distant in some way.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's a dangerous tendency in any of our worlds to take Israel for granted. And I think there's a recognition that our inability to reach an accommodation because of the Islamist imperative now is not only an Israeli incredible challenge. This is a challenge that the free world is grappling with. We're just on the front line of it. Natan, the last word to you, please.
Important thing that in 60 years from now, in fact, much earlier, but definitely in 60 years from now, by far majority of Jewish people will live in Israel. And I recommend to everybody to think how many of your great-grandchildren will be in Israel, how many of them will live as Jews in diaspora, and how many of them will assimilate. It's a very important question to think about. Second, the state of Israel, by its creation, made many good things, but problematic thing which was created kind of fence between Israeli and Jew. This fence already now starts being brought down, and it's very important that it will be brought down. I believe that in 6 years from now it will not exist. There will be one Jewish-Israeli identity, and Jews, from this point, Jews in diaspora, for them Israel will be a very important part of their identity, and Israelis will feel much more than they feel today that Israel is something which belongs to all the Jewish people. And that's maybe the most important revolutionary change or correction which has to be done to that Zionism which was, until now, which was building kind of wall between Israelis and Jews. Internationally, I dream and I believe in one thing. There will be the end of these attempts to impose peace from top down, to impose peace of the people. There will be understanding that we all are interested to encourage building of the civil society in our area, and as a result, Israel will lose its monopoly on being the only democratic state in the region. And that will be the most revolutionary step towards real peace in the Middle East.
And on that ambitious, optimistic note, thank you, Natan, Leon, Ruth, Michael. Thank you very much. Thank you.